You're on.
Welcome everybody to our October 2025 ECS board meeting. Start with our call to order, roll call. Mr. Lefty today.
Adam Cristino. Julia Robinson.
Nick Conklin.
Ellen Romagni. Megan Beach. Sophie Manning.
Stan O'Loughlin.
Jill Strayer.
Alan Tobias.
Turnout tonight. Thank you everybody for being here. Now pledge of allegiance.
You can actually hold it out. Didn't want to be behind the scenes, sorry.
Pledge allegiance to the
flag
United States of America,
to the republic
which stands
one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our mission of ECS is to educate the student to high academic standards using innovative curricula that will foster knowledge, love of, and respect for the environment and preserve for future generations. Citizens. Our vision is that every ECS graduate will be an actively engaged citizen, driving thoughtful change in the world around them. So today, as we did in our previous meeting, we are going to go into an immediate executive session where we're going to be for approximately 1 hour, after which we will come out of our executive session and resume the public portion of our meeting. Without further ado, I'd like to have a motion to enter into executive session. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we will go into executive session. You ready? You are not ready?
You're on.
Okay. All right, welcome back, everybody. Okay. Do you have a mission problem, Patrick?
We do have a mission.
Okay, all right.
Blind everyone.
Man,
Yeah, I'm gonna blind
Just
everyone.
watch your eyes.
Okay.
Maybe, yeah, you'll want to turn around.
So, we don't have our typical projector here today, but we did receive our PVAS scores, which is the Pennsylvania Value Added Assessment scores. Those are our growth scores that we get every year. And so I shared with you all our PSSA scores, the raw data scores, and now we can see those measures of growth for the year. And then also kind of hot off the presses today, we did get our summary report, which I'll show you at the end, that will compare our PSSA scores to the state. This is a lot of print for right now, but basically what it says is they're changing the way that the PVAS scores are shared with us. So they used to show like growth, standard methodology for each student. They would say how well they did in one year versus how well they did in the other, how much did they grow. They're changing it to predictive, which means that they take a compilation of how well you've done over time, as well as other students like you, and they give you a predicted score. And then how you actually do compared to that predicted score is your growth measure. So if you do better than they thought you would, you're growing. If you did the same as they thought you would, you're not growing. And if you did worse, you're like in the red, right? So in PVAS, we've got the blue, green, yellow, and red scores. So this one is our math. And so I did it again over time. So the top scores, they're chunked as 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We don't have 3rd grade because you can't show a growth score in 3rd grade, which I wonder if it will change now because it is predictive. So we'll have to see how that goes. So the bottom is our current PSSA math scores and that predicted. There's like a difference between that. And as always, you can use PVAS in different ways. So that's that box on the left. So we can think about it in terms of one grade level over time. How are we doing? So starting in 2022, if you look at our 4th grade, that's the top in every one of those categories. So in 2022, our 4th graders were well below the growth projected. And then in 23, they moved to below. 2024, they were meeting their growth standard. And now this past year, our 4th graders are well above that growth standard. So those are thinking about those 4th grade teachers over time. How is that grade band actually doing? So that's one way to do it. And then you can also go in that same way, maybe we're not doing so well. So if you look at our 6th grade over time, so in 2022, they were below, then we went to well below for over time. And so something that we need to dig into is that 6th grade band in math. What's happening there? And why are we not seeing the growth that we want to? So that's one way. The other way is to think about it as a cohort model. So how are that one particular grade doing each year? So 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and on. And so if you look at our 6th graders in 2024, they were well below. So they're that only one in that red category in 2024. But then they're 7th graders in 2025, and they're above the growth average. So we've got, so that 6th grade to 7th grade year, we're actually seeing some growth in 7th grade. So what is happening there too, we need to dig in a little bit and see how we can use what's going well in that grade band and other grade bands. And then of course you can look at it as a grade or as a year at a time. So in 2025, if you look at all of the scores in math, 4th, 5th were well above, 7th was above, and then 8th was just met, and then our 6th grade, we said, was well below. There's different ways to look at our PVAS. So that's math. ELA. You can do the same thing. I see that 2025 is kind of cut off there at the bottom, but again, you can look at 4th grade over time. And so if you look at our 4th graders in ELA in 2022, they met, and then they have stayed in that well above category in that 4th grade band from year after year. So 23, 24, and 25. We also have our 8th graders who moved from well below that grade band in 2022, then we went to well below, met, and now our 8th graders are well above. If we also think about 6th graders in 2023, and then in 24 and 25. So if you look at 6th graders, over that like moved from 2022 from well below to meet, and now, sorry, 6th grade in 23, they're well below. And then 24 and 25, and 7th and 8th well above. So we're growing. Last year though, if you look at that as a whole, all of them are mostly blue. That 6th grade is really close to the dark blue. We want them in the dark blue, except for our 5th grade, which is blue. So there are some things that are going well and growth that's happening, right? We look at those versus achievement scores. If you look at an achievement score and a student is scoring in that below basic category or in the basic category, they do need to be in that dark blue well above growth for multiple years in order to catch up to their standard. So if you just meet the standard, if you score basic 1 year, like in 4th grade, and you met the standard in 5th grade, you're still basic. So we need you in that blue growth category to move out of the basic into proficient and advanced. In our keystones, we did not do as well as we'd hope in growth area in our algebra and our biology. So those are again over time 20. This one it's a little bit different. They've always done predictive for Keystone because you're not going to take that test year after year. So it's just based on the students who are taking it. But if you look at our literature keystones, we've gone from in 2022 from below to then in 24 and 25 both well above. So we're really digging into what that educator is doing in our Keystone literature course to see if there are things that we can replicate in some of our other categories. So then in the hot off the presses moment, this is how we did as a school overall in our PSSAs. This is back to that achievement, not growth, versus the state. So in ELA, our school as a whole, the average is 67.6% with proficient or advanced, and the state is only at 48.5. And in math, we were at 58.9, and the state is only at 41.7. And remember, science, we don't have scores this year because of that, the new test. So this then, you can break this down into each grade band. And so we can look at ELA, and each grade has how we did as a school. So, so this one is how we did as a school, 77.7 was proficient or advanced, and then the state here is at 48.6. So that's in 3rd grade. And then in 4th grade, we were at 82.8, the state is 48.4, and so on. So if you see in ELA, we are above the state average, close here, at the 8th grade level, but above the state average for proficient or advanced in every grade. In math, it's a very similar story except for 7th grade. So in math, we have 80.6% proficient or advanced, and the state was 53.6. Again, one of the things that I think we talked about when we did achievement scores too, just the PSSA scores, if you look at our number of students that are advanced versus the state. So that's something to be pretty excited about. And then we've got our 4th graders at 82.8, and the state was only at 50.6. And 5th grade had very similar gap difference there. And then in our middle school, it's a closer distribution. So the only one that we're really concerned about is the 7th grade. We had 32.6%, and the state was at 33.7. But that also is a grade band, which has seen blue growth. So it's a very interesting thing where we're not doing as well as we can, but we're growing students. So we have to think about kind of what we're doing, and hopefully we can do a little bit more with them as they're 8th graders this year. Are there any questions?
Will there be like a version of this with the district values in there eventually, or
This one here, these are our scores. So this 80.6, this is us as a grade band.
Oh yeah. Sorry. I meant PPS.
Oh yeah. So yes. So the next, they always release this in phases, right? So this first is the state, and what we'll get. Usually we get it at the end of October. It's the ability for me to see the scatter plot, which I think you guys remember from last year was really helpful, which is all the schools that are in our area and where we are as in like growth and achievement. There's quadrants related. And when I get that, I'll share it with you too. Okay.
So we're able to compare it to other schools as well, other charter schools. You can see some hard state.
For the 6th grade math, I think that's something that I know you said you're going to dig into what that is because it's consistent, but EVAS should take into account difference, like maybe a different student composition and stuff like that, should be growth on the baseline from the individual student. I'm just kind of curious, like what math is taught? Like, what is the sixth grade curriculum in terms of like?
Takes me back. So sixth grade is starting, so they're doing algebra in eighth grade, pre-algebra like in seventh grade, and they're still doing like algebraic expressions and values and different types of like getting into the pre-algebra essentially is what I would say. And so it's a little bit higher level than fifth grade. We typically do see a decline in scores in sixth grade math, but we shouldn't, right? So if we're looking at all the other things that we've looked at as a board, most of our scores are increasing. So we should continue to see that, even though the concepts are harder, we should still be seeing growth.
To your point, just to understand a bit, are these scores that we're seeing can really understand how the predictive scoring works exactly, but is that controlling for different compositions? Because clearly we do have a different composition of students in sixth grade than in fifth grade.
Yeah, so it's your score as a student, like your predicted score. And so they think about how you've done over time and then how other students like you have done over time to predict how you would do this year. And then they look at your actual score, and if you actually did better than that, you're like, what?
Yeah, so the predictive model, as I understand, should actually give you a better relative to that sixth grade stuff. It's not just growth in kind of a cohort, it's which kind of conflated a couple of things because it's also different. Should be drilled in maybe like 1 or 2 years.
I think so. I think it'll be helpful to get this predictive next year too, to see if we see any differences. We're also doing in our middle school pretty strong intervention blocks for the first time for this year. So every student is getting intervention, not just tier 3, which is for students who need the most intervention. So we also should see an increase in scores that way too, because kids are getting more repetition of what they do.
So I guess what I'm trying to understand, I know you said you're going to drill into it.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll just think about it just since it's fresh in my mind. But I guess what I'm trying to understand from looking at this is like one way to, again, one thought that occurs to me is, we have an influx of students in sixth grade that don't have the same background in math, and is that what's pulling this average score down, or is that this whatever the way that they come up with that number is like controlling that?
It is. So the student who comes here would have the same predictive methodology throughout. So if they started here in sixth grade and they were somewhere else in Pennsylvania in fourth and fifth grade, and they did a certain way in these tests. So let's say they were proficient in fourth, proficient in fifth, and other students like them scored proficient. And when they got to sixth grade, they would be predicted to be proficient. And so then the value add comes in our curriculum and in our process and our teachers. If we can get them to grow higher than proficiency, they'll see a growth. So it takes that kind of new cohort out of it. So it is a struggle for a teacher, because if you do have students who are not had the same math experience or different curriculum or different vocabulary, they're trying to get all of that together in sixth grade. And that could be one.
That could contribute to it too, but then I'm wondering how much, and maybe this is going to happen, maybe not, like the connection between the curriculum and the way topics are being introduced and what the test is asking for, because you see a jump going into seventh grade. So it could be that the students are just introduced into things at a different time frame, and then you see them going back up once they have that knowledge and they're solid, right? But we're just not introducing it to them at the time the test is going to be introduced. And so then there's a question about, should we be or shouldn't we be, why or why not?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're doing right now is our associate directors at middle school are taking the tests and the anchors that go with each. So each scorer is called an anchor, assessment anchor, and those are related to the standards. And so they're going to evaluate how our students did on each individual anchor standard and see if there are some that we are lower in or higher in, and where do those fit in the curriculum, and is it after the test, is it before the test? And we're not going to necessarily change that for the test, because if we think it's in the right way, but if it's also not, then that's something to change for sure.
Do they publish what are the factors they use to identify similarity between students?
That's a good question. I have not been trained on this new predictive methodology yet. I go November 3rd to a training at the AIU. So we'll hear a little bit more about it. I'm assuming that they'll share more and I can share more with you. I don't know.
One thing that may be interesting, I know if you have access to the individual student records, is to see what that would look like for kids who came from fifth grade, who went from fifth to sixth within the ECS system versus those who started in the ECS system in sixth grade, to see if there's a meaningful difference.
Yes, I just found how to do that.
Great, great.
I'm
And
working on it now.
excellent.
Yeah.
Like brother with multi.
I got you. Yeah.
I mean, just anecdotally, my daughter started ACS in fifth grade, so last year she was in public school. And, like, I can see it happening, like, there's a lot more rigor in that program here than there was in the previous. So she's playing catch up, you know, not necessarily like, in the way the math is discussed, in like the kind of base knowledge that the rest of the students have in one grade. And, I mean, it really makes a difference, that switch. Like, you might, she might have known a lot of concepts, but not exactly the way that ECS has talked about them and the way they drilled on them, and that makes a big difference. Yeah, transition.
My first reaction when I saw that, again, an unsophisticated reaction probably, but oh, so it just looks like probably there's some students that need to get their hand things here.
Yeah.
And they did. It sort of looks like that may not be the case actually. That's kind of, that would be the first hypothesis that I would test.
I'm testing that one out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if I may, just, I also wanted to share one other thing. Nikki Hutchison, who heads up our food service, asked me just to share a little bit of information about food and what's happening with food. Obviously, in order for kids to score well and do well in school, they have to be well fed, and that's the work that Nikki does. And so she wanted me to share that the numbers that they have, the goals that they've set, they're like blasting through them at this point. You guys had dinner, thanks to Community Kitchen of Pittsburgh, and hopefully you enjoyed that, and we think our students enjoyed that exact same food. For the primary school for breakfast, they had set a target of a 30% increase in the uptake of food for breakfast, and they're at 38%. And lunch was 28%, and they're at almost 39%. So they're blasting through that at the primary school. In the intermediate school, they had set a goal of 26% increase in breakfast uptake. They're at 29.5%, almost 30%. For lunch, it was 30% at the intermediate school, and they're up 40%. In the middle school, it's 10% goal for breakfast increase. They're at 18.45%. For the lunch uptake, 27% increase goal. They're at almost 39%. So getting many more middle school kids, which is great. High school breakfast goal was to increase by 18%. They're at over 24% increase. The increase for lunch target was 33%, and they're at over 38%. So we think that this is, obviously the work that Manny's reporting on is extremely important, and that's core to who we are. But this is an essential support for the students to make sure that they have a successful day from beginning to end. And she and her team do a great job to make that possible. And we're doing it in the face of a budget that is not passed at the state level, and she's doing it in the face of some of the challenges at the federal level. And we met with Michelle last week, I think, just to sort of make sure we're still good and ready to keep making sure kids have good meals, and we are. So I just wanted to share that. Thanks.
So, yeah, I guess we'll move forward by saying if you want to make a comment.
That's great.
So we move to the consent agenda.
Can I just say on the consent agenda, we'd like to remove from voting, so we'd like to take off of the agenda item 7.2 EduLink.
Okay.
we were asking them for a revised quote, and we've not yet received that revised quote, so we'd like to not vote on that.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd like that number to go down.
We'll take that out. The items, 6.1 through 6.3, the consent agenda. Any questions, discussion on those? Not, I will read the resolution. Resolution 2025-10-2193, be resolved by the Board of Trustees of the school that the consent agenda for October 15th, 2025 be approved. So, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes, the resolution is adopted. Moving on to number 7, we have a couple of items, one of which Patrick just indicated we withdrawn. The first one is 7.1. This is, I'm just going to read the resolution and we can open it up for questions or discussion. Resolution 2025-10-2194, be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of the school that the Chatham contract be approved. Do you want to say anything about this, Patrick, or?
I think Manny would be best to speak to this. It's very important.
Yeah, it's really, this is our contract that we have with Chatham for 2 things. One, which is our students' ability to have free college credits in the high school, dual enrollment. And then also part of it is the partnership that we have with Chatham professor who kind of shepherds our students along the way through this. I just wanted to let you know, we have 12 students so far in the fall taking Chatham courses. All of last year we had 12, so we're seeing an increase in students going into that dual enrollment program. We also have a wider variety of courses that are being offered. We even have someone who is in an environmental history course, so we're really excited about that. So I can answer any questions that you might have, but it's a really important thing to have not only payment for the credit for students, they're leaving here, some of them with 4 college courses, but also that partnership with Chatham and the ability to have tutors for our students. We have the professor, Heather Cunningham, is able to match our students with appropriate courses based on the knowledge of our students, the knowledge of who we are. Oh, we also have 3 students that are currently enrolled at Chatham, 2 of whom graduated last year and 1 prior. So it actually was really exciting because our students they spend a lot of time on campus because their courses are on campus, and so they do tour ahead of time. And when we gave these 12 students who are in the fall a tour, our 2 students who are freshmen there randomly happened upon the tour and then kind of guided them along the way. So it was really nice to see.
Awesome.
Any questions or comments on that item? Not, do I have a motion on that? Second. All in favor? Any opposed? The motion passes. Resolution is adopted. We will skip 7.2 for reasons discussed. 7.3, confidential settlement agreement, which was discussed in executive session. I'll read the resolution. Resolution 2025-10-2196, be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of the school that the confidential settlement agreement and release for employee number 682-25 be recognized and approved by the board. Are there any other comments or questions about this? Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. This resolution is adopted as well. Thanks, everybody. We don't have any policies, review, adoption, discussion tonight. So we will move on to other business. Any other business? Okay, so we have, we'll move on to number 11, which is committee reports. I don't have an executive committee report, other than just to point out that a few times in the past, I don't know if anybody is listening, but the board is here, and we of course are looking, always interested in, people are interested in putting themselves up as a candidate for the board. Something that, everyone should be keeping in mind. We are always looking for people who might be interested in that or might be able to contribute in some way. So I would just leave it with that, but something for everybody to think about. People who might be interested.
I have a couple of feelers out.
Okay, terrific. So, do you have any governance committee report tonight? It's not doubted. Education committee report. We got that.
Very brief one. I was not in attendance because I had a school event I had to go to, but it was reported that the education committee met and discussed the PBOS scores. Anything additional to add?
Just the dual enrollment program.
And the dual enrollment program, which we've already discussed tonight.
Great. So, finance and facilities, anything additional to report?
No, the whole consent agenda.
Yeah. So it's in there.
It's in there, and also the chat stuff, but there's nothing really to know unless.
I know, that's the other one.
Okay.
Okay.
Terrific. Do we have any CSFT representative report tonight?
Not here.
And what about PCO report?
I'm filling in.
Okay.
So, yes. Just to mention that we have the fall festival happening next Friday. If anybody can make it, it'll be behind intermediate school. It's a good time. Turns out I'm organizing it. There's also PCO meetings have moved to be quarterly to try and kind of increase attendance on both sides. And on November 7th, there will be a meeting with Patrick, and then also the principals for middle school and high school will be there. So hopefully we'll get parents. It'll be at noon on November 7th. Molly asked me to mention that the next Moving Bash planning meeting is October 23rd at 8:15. You guys can all write that down. I'm sure you want to join.
No, and I'll just remind, I'm not good at this myself, but I'll remind board members that I think it's always appreciated, interested in attending a PCO meeting or other events, especially those who don't have kids in the school. It's easy to, I know from my own experience, it's easy to sort of forget, because obviously we are coming to meetings and things, but when you're not here, you don't necessarily know them, but it's I think it's been appreciated in the past, and I just think it's good practice for us to do that. So we can talk more about ways for the board to have a little bit of visibility, both with PCO and other things, but something to keep thinking about. All right, well, I think we'll be in here. Anything else missed? Anything else? Good. If not, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, yeah.
All right, all in favor?
Hi.
Nice work.
Wow. We average two. Yeah, I went to, that sounds like a nice idea, Merrimack Valley, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's value, it's like,
Yeah.
right,